Hi guys, and welcome to my review of the TANGZU Tian. This is the third IEM in this series of IEMs which TANGZU has been launching, which began with the Yuan Li, which was a single dynamic. They then launched the Shimin Li, which was let's say a budget or a more budget oriented single dynamic, and now they've entered the Planar wars with the ZTianWu, which is a 14.5mm planar. Anyway, let me just take you through the box quickly, and then we'll get straight into it because this is going to be, I think, an interesting review. Box very much along the lines of what we got in the Yuan Li in terms of presentation, which is top notch. I mean, TANGZU really outdoes themselves in that aspect. Carrying case came over here, IEMs came over there. Nice assortment of tips, as you can see, balanced, enhanced, and some foams. Very nice. I mean, honestly, in terms of tips and overall presentation and everything, TANGZU gets top marks in my books. Let me just put this away, and we'll get on to showing you the rest. With regards to the case, they've also gone with a more like XL sized case. Very nice. The IEM sits in there, the wire gets wound up around the outside. Really the business. I mean, this is my hand, not that I've got a very big hand, but you can see straight away. By comparison, for example, this is the Tin Hi-Fi case, and you can see straight away what we're talking about. I mean, it's basically twice the size. By comparison as well, here is the Dioko case. So very the same style, big, chunky, you know, the business. So IEM comes inside there, and the IEMs themselves are these beauties. Relatively light to the hand, but very nicely finished off faceplate. I mean, look at that, very nice design there. This purplish color, using the tips which came with the IEM itself. 4.4 termination. There's a 3.5 as well. I'm using the 4.4. Well, I asked for the 4.4, yeah, that's basically it. In terms of fit, no complaints. It fits perfectly. It hasn't got any weird shapes or anything of the sort. So it fits beautifully. Noise isolation, everything is in my ears perfect. I'm using well, although these are the standard tips, these are like the 07 tips, and it's flawless. I've got absolutely nothing to say with regards to that. That's out of the way. Physically, look wise, everything. What do I have in front of you? Well, I thought it would make sense to bring up basically all the planars of more recent times for this comparison, and I've kind of graded them by where I think they stand or they stack up in terms of overall performance and so on and so forth. That's all the planars on this side, which I'll introduce to you in a second. And I thought it also made sense, since I was so impressed with the performance of the TANGZU, of the ZTianWu. Sorry, I'm going to call it from now on. I'm just going to call it the Z, for the sake of just being easier. So I was so impressed with the performance of the Z that I thought it would make sense for me to compare it with what I consider to be two of the top tribrids around, two of the top all BA sets around, and two of the top single DD sets around. Okay, so let me start by introducing everything so that we get acquainted with what we have in front of you. And I'm going to try and be as quick and as concise as possible, because you know how I am. I get carried away, and if we could be 2 hours speaking about it. So I'm going to try and be nice and concise. In terms of what I've used to listen, I've used TK2, I've used the Shanling UAE3 coupled with my topping NX7, and I did some listening as well with my DX3 Pro. Most of the listening, however, was done with these two, and the sound differences between these two and the matching with each one of these IEMs is, to say, is enormous, to say the least. There are some IEMs which really shine on the TK2, others just die, and the same thing goes for this combination here. Although overall there are more positives with this connection than with the TK2, and it has to do with the nature of the TK2 already being on the brighter side of the way it sounds, let's put it that way. Anyway, on to the IEMs. Right over there on the top corner is an IEM which was a valid attempt by Muse, the Power. However, the tuning, they could have learned from what was already available at the time. The tuning wasn't exactly the most successful, and it kind of died very quickly, and not much has been heard about them lately. I hope they do think about making a retune. I've actually retuned this one, to be honest, and retuned, it actually sounds very nice. It sounds much nicer than the stock Muse Power. Next to it, I've got the new CCA, the PLA 13, which I will be talking about in a little bit more detail on a separate review. Although, in this comparison, I can also mention basically what needs to be mentioned about it. But that's CCA's offering in the Planar game. Next to it, we have the Tian, which I actually liked. I actually think it's a decent Planar. Unfortunately, it came out at a time where you have so many already good Planars, and especially the Yorker, which came out just straight after it with the price of $99. It kind of took away a little bit of the possible glory that this could have obtained. In the second row here, I've got the 7Hz Yorker, okay, collaboration with Critical, the Granddaddy, the good old Timeless, another one which is a crowd favorite, which is the S12, and especially now with Short Bus, Michael Bruce having done a retune to this, a very nice planar, very nice planar, I have to admit. Although obviously I'll be talking to them, or I'll be talking to you about all of them in their stock format. And then in the front line, which are the ones that I consider to be the top choices, the Tin Hi-Fi P1 Max, a tremendous planar in my opinion. The Rapco Hook X, okay, and our star of today's show, the Z, okay. Over here, what do I have? I've got the Let's Shure EJ07M with the Yan Yin Moonlight in front of it, okay, so two tribreds, two very good tribreds, okay. Over there, I've got the Soft Ears RSV, speaks for itself, really needs no introduction. Over here, we have a newcomer to this whole high-end game, our Audio Neon Pro. And then here in this corner on the right hand side, one of my references in every aspect, Tenstum Oxygen, and again another reference for me in my opinion, which is the Oriolos Isabellai, tremendous IEM. Honestly, tremendous IEM. Let's get straight into this. Let's get straight into it and talk about what TANGZU was able to do here with the Z. In a kind of concise manner, the Z was tuned very much in a way where they went and drink from the other available planars, in the sense that they went and take away what the other IEMs had as their strong point, and try to implement it in a cohesive, coherent package in the Z. So they went and take basically, these ones here, Okay, let's forget the Z, but these ones here, so the Yoko, Timeless, S12, P1, and HAKUGEI, they all have tremendous resolution. Tremendous. It's a planar thing, period. Soundstage. Technically, they all are very capable, obviously some more than the others. Okay? They all have very much a planar timbre, tonality. Some will have that tonality or timbre which will be more pleasing in the sense that it will seem more realistic, will seem more Didi-like. And in that aspect, my reference in terms of timbre here is the Oxygen and the Isabella. These two are the ones which, for me, in terms of tonality and timbre, are, for me personally, the ones that I consider the ideal. And so this, some of them are able to faithfully reproduce what these two do. Others come a little bit close, don't come as close. In terms of, like I said, soundstage and imaging, any one of these ones here is spectacular. Probably the one that jumps out a little bit more in terms of overall technicalities. If I'm just looking at that by itself, it's probably the Yoko. However, the Yoko does have an issue, which is the fact that it's mid-bass thin. And by being mid-bass thin, it then detracts away from certain genres of music and certain aspects. In a purely technical fashion, yes, it's probably the one that's the best in technicalities wise, but then when you actually listen to music and you'd go and take those technicalities into account, then it, for me, in my opinion, loses out to the P1 Max, and it loses out to the Hook. Okay, how does then the Z stack up with them in terms of technicalities? For me personally, and after listening to it already for a few days, the Z and the P1 are the best in terms of technicalities. That's for me. That's for what I listen to, for, you know, what is my preferred musical taste. And I'm talking about things like Les Sabler, Crescent City Strut, for example, or you listen to it in a Sentimental Mood from Cecile Norby. You know, those little nuances in Sentimental Mood, the way her voice, she breathes, you know, the micro detailing. The P1 is amazing. The biggest flaw of the P1, in my opinion, is that it's very power hungry. Actually, any one of these planars here, there is a true, that's true to the saying that planars need power. So if any of these companies here say that they will play well with a low power or just connected to the phone, I'm sorry to say that I don't agree with them. For any one of these IEMs here, the same way as a BA will sound very, very loud with very little power, these ones, and I mean, I used the TK2, like I said, I used my NX7, I had to get the same level of volume, I had to really crank up the volume. I had to, otherwise it just sounded significantly low, you know, as less loud. So the Z, in terms of technicalities, it has amazing soundstage, amazing imaging. You can pinpoint everything very nicely. Tonality and timbre is, for me as well, the best one. Actually, and you know, just to go back a little bit here to the P1 Max, these two, in my opinion, complement each other. Okay. This, in terms of, when you look at the graph, and in the second section when I show you the graphs, you'll explain, this is very flat in terms of its overall graph. There's no apparent emphasis or in any part of the spectrum, but when you listen to it, and if you give it power, like I said, you really are amazed at what it's capable of doing. There's more than ample bass. I mean, when I compared it to, when I did the Yoko review and I compared these two, they both are on the more neutralish side, let's put it that way, in terms of their signature, as opposed to the Timeless and the S12 and the Hook, which are more V-ish type. And it was very noticeable that the bass here was more significant, although graphically it didn't seem like that. Okay, so these two, in my opinion, are more of a complement of each other, because I would consider this a very mild V. Okay, mids, any one of these have got very good mids. Any one of them. I mean, it's not even a question here. The question here is how then the bass marries with those mids, and that marriage here in the Z has been done flawlessly. It is absolutely amazing. I mean, vocals, instruments, everything has just been so well done. You listen, for example, to Darius, or you listen to a song by Cecile Norby, You, as well. I mean, amazing. Honestly, you have to really listen. You especially, her voice just, honestly, you get kind of transported to where she's singing, and you think that she's right there in front of you. That's how good the Z does it, which is the same kind of sensation that, for example, I get when I listen to the P1, as long as I give it a good amount of power. And treble. If the Hook X was probably the one which had the best extension out of all of them up to now, and the most kind of sparkly feeling, this when you listen to the Z and you compare it to the Hook, the Z kind of seems more polished. It's not as energy. It has a little bit less energy than the Hook, yes, obviously, because the Hook has also got a piezo there helping it out. But you feel that the treble in the Z is just very well matched to the rest of the spectrum, and it just sounds more real. It sounds more true, and that's what is its standout. For me, in my opinion. As compared to those three up top there, I mean, the Muse Hi-Fi in stock format, forget it. It's just I wouldn't, mess is a strong word. It's just not a very well put together package. It's got decent enough bass, but then there's this massive dip in the mids, which just takes away body. And it just is not it is not an engaging planar to listen. You listen to it and you actually feel that, am I listening to a planar? Also, some people said that some other reviewers had mentioned that it was very bright. No, I didn't consider it to be very bright. The Timeless and the S12 are brighter than it, unquestionably. Compared to the TRI, to the TRN, sorry. Again, the Z is superior. It's you feel that you're listening to a very spacious presentation, while over there you definitely notice that everything is more closed in, more narrow, more closed down. It's not as expansive, let's put it that way. And the CCA is actually a surprise, in the sense that, depending on what you listen to, well, one of the things that you straight away notice very much is that it has a lot of bass, which is actually funny, because if you consider that it's not funny, but it's actually amazing, because it's actually one of the smallest planar of one of the smaller planars available on this current or on this group, at least 13.2 millimeters. And it's got a lot. It's got tons of bass. All of it really down low, below 50 hertz. You really feel it's got tons of bass. But that amount of bass has come at the cost of it being slow. So while you do feel in this, in the TRN, for example, a sense of speed to the bass, although not as large in quantity, the CCA sounds slow by comparison. It's bass. It's a nice bass. It's fun. It's engaging. It's a nice V signature, the CCA, mind you, and that's where I was actually surprised. I wasn't expecting it to be such an engaging V signature, but it is. It's very much a faithful implementation of the KZ sound, but in a planar. Okay, But compared to the Z, no, the Z is a more balanced out sound, and especially in the mids, which do sound recessed over there slightly. Over here, no, over here, the mids, everything is, it just presents itself in a very mature, very upscale manner. Not in a manner that you would think that this only costs $149. Let's put it that way. Okay. What about then these ones here? How does the Z compare to any one of these IEMs? Yeah. Well, let me start by saying that I was surprised. I was surprised. I honestly thought that there would be bigger differences. I'm going to start with the BAs first, or the all BA sets first, because the one thing that immediately stands out between the Z and the BA sets here is the tonality and the timbre. There's a warmth that the Z has, which neither of these two is able to equal. These two, although being, in my opinion, probably two of the better all BA sets around, and both capable of a very faithful tonality, which is very anti-normal BA, normal way of producing. The timbre of these two, the tonality of these two, when you compare it to the Z, it sounds cold. They sound cold. They sound digital, let's put it that way. While this one has a very analog kind of sensation to it, which personally I prefer. Putting that aside in terms of overall technicalities as well, I was very surprised once again how it was able to hold its own very much with either one of these. Very much. Yes, ultimate detail, I would say the Neon Pro and the RSV outdo it, but we are again talking $150 versus $600 versus $700. So whether or not that disparity of price justifies what you've gained in terms of overall performance or not, look, it will depend of everyone and of their pockets and what they're willing to spend. Honestly, I didn't expect there to be such a small difference. I thought the difference would be more significant. And let me just make this clear. I'm not detracting anything away from the Neon Pro or from the RSV. Those that follow me know that I like both these IEMs a lot. I consider these two references in terms of all BAs, and they are part of my top 10 IEMs. Okay. Comparing them now to the Tribrids, the difference that I found most noticeable was a little bit extra. I don't know how to put the word weight in terms of the bass of the EJ07M compared to the Z. So a little bit extra weight there as compared to here. As compared to the Moonlight, the bass in terms of its presentation is about equal. I really honestly couldn't see any significant difference. Texture, everything very equal, and the Z was very able to keep up with the Yan the majority of the time. Again, obviously with the music that I listen to. Like I said, let me give you a few examples here of a few other songs. Galimatias, Let Go, for example. There was no difficulty with regards to the Z being able to keep up with the Moonlight. Or Elephant from Carol Duboc as well. Nice, the overall presentation. In Crescent City Strut by Les Sabler, you hear the cymbals and the constantly all the time, and the guitar. Very nice. Honestly, very nice. The Moonlight, obviously, we know it's a beast of an IEM. If it wasn't, it wouldn't have been used in a collaboration that HBB recently did with Yan in the Mahina. So it needs no introduction. And the EJ07M as well. It needs basically no introduction. We both know that these two are tremendous Tribrids, and the fact that this was able to keep up with them, for me as well, is a win. We're talking $620, $630 or $640. Again, it's really quite amazing, And mind you, it's not something which is unheard of, because the S12, okay, is one of those other IEMs that has been able to keep up with much more expensive stuff, okay, as well. And finally, on this corner here, we have the Oxygen and the Isabellai. Both of them, in terms of their mids, flawless. Period. Flawless. Bass, the way it presents itself, the texture of the bass, everything. These two IEMs are, they are on another level. Which of these two I think is overall the better one? Yes, the Isabellai is overall the better one. Does it justify twice the price over the Oxygen? Difficult question to answer. Okay, the law of diminishing results tells me no. But the truth is, the Aureolus Isabellai, in terms of single DD, is an absolute beast. I mean, the MIM Dark Magician has gotten a lot of favorable reviews and so on and so forth. But I think a lot of people just weren't. Well, I think the reason why it got that following and that momentum going was the fact that originally it was available for $350 to $400, which opened up the market substantially. This is $650 roughly. So the amount of people willing to spend that money for a single DD obviously comes down and then the Dark Magician, as it increased price, because it gained that momentum of being a good single DD driver, it was able to then justify its price. Personally, I don't own the Dark Magician. I've heard it, I've tested it, and if I do find a good second-hand one, I'll buy it. I don't think that it's worth its price in terms of buying outright brand new. I mean, my Aureolus, I bought it second-hand. Perfect example, and I paid way less than half than what it costs. And I think, not saying that that's the fair value for it. I would say it's an IM that probably $400, $450. It's well worth that, but not the $600 that it costs. But anyway, going on to what we were talking about, and not drifting away from the whole thing. Mids perfect in these two. Tonality, timbre, male voices, female voices. Everything just comes across very nice, very natural, very true, in my opinion, obviously, and with the music I listen to. And again, once again, I was very surprised at how the Z was able to keep up. And in certain instances, the Z was actually able to outdo this group of IEMs here. There was instances in terms of the overall soundstage that it was larger than any one of these IEMs here. Definitely. I mean, if I have to, objectively talk about the strengths of each one of these ones, yes, technicality is definitely not what I would consider an overall strength of the RSV, especially considering its price. It's not. The Moonlight, it can suffer sometimes from a slightly closed-in soundstage, in my opinion. Sure, there are certain songs where you don't feel that sparkle of the EST, and you actually question yourself: is there an EST working there? Okay, on the Aureolus and on the Oxygen, they both sometimes can be, with some music and with some genres, a little bit too energetic in the mids, and some people might even say that, oh, they're over energetic, they're a little bit too bright. So in those instances, it was actually curious to see how the Z was able to outdo them when they were caught in their areas where they are less strong, in their problem areas, let's put it that way. I never found the Z, for example, to be harsh with nothing that I heard. And when there was a hint of harshness, it was because the recording was harsh already in itself. So what I'm basically saying is that, taking into account its price and the performance that it's able to put out, it's an amazing IM. I mean, TANGZU really learned from the others that were available in the market, went and fetched what the others had of good and implemented it in a very nice package. I mean, the Yoko does nothing better than the Z, nothing. And okay, it's $99. This is 150 roughly. In my opinion, the difference is justified. It is justified because this complements the Yoko where the Yoko fails, which is that lack of energy down low. You have sub bass, but then you don't have the mid bass, which complements certain genres very well. R&B, EDM, even rock. The rock sounds thin in comparison to the Z on the Yoko. It sounds dead. Let's put it that way. So yeah, I mean, in a nutshell, and I don't want to drag this too long. That's basically my take on the TANGZU the Z Tian. Very well implemented IM, nice package, nice overall accessories, very well tuned. I wouldn't say it's a radical departure in their overall tuning of the Z as compared to the others. There is certain similarities, and when I show you the graphs just now, you will understand. But it's again, I repeat myself, it's been able to get what the other planars had of good and implement it in a very nice way. In this, I mean, it's got the bass on the Z is, if the S12 and the HAKUGEI are known for the bass, this has the same bass turned up, well, not turned up, but just a notch extra in terms of overall quality. The quantity is the same, it's just got a little bit extra more refinement, okay? And that's a testament to the fact that whoever tuned this, or an individual person or a team of people, whoever tuned this took his time and really saw what was available and made sure that it was well done. As compared to the P1 Max, I am not going to say which is better, which is not better, because the overall tuning is just different, okay? It's just a different tuning. This will probably outdo the P1 in being more versatile in terms of the music genres that you can listen to, yes, and it will also outdo the P1 in the fact that it's easier to drive, although with some power it needs power. Okay, so in that aspect, yes, but I think that either one of these two are unquestionably go-to planars if you haven't yet entered the planar wars. If you already own any one of these two, is it worthwhile? Any one of these planars? Is it a worthwhile? Is it worthwhile to get the Z? Well, look, if you have that extra money and you want to have something which is, yes, superior, I would say yes, definitely. The only one here which has a similar kind of tuning, which I would say I would probably hold, I wouldn't be jumping into it straight away, would be if you own a HAKUGEI. Jumping into the Z, I would say, is probably something that I wouldn't do straight away. Wait until you maybe get it at a discounted price or something. But any one of those 6 there, yes, definitely get the Z. And the P1 is like I said, it's a more neutral sound in terms of its overall tuning. So if you want something a little bit more lively, yes, okay, fine, get it. If you don't have as much power, yes, then fine, get it. But otherwise, it's a side grade, okay? So that's it, guys. I'm sorry if I maybe repeated myself a few extra times or not, but I really wanted to position the Z and congratulate TANGZU for an amazing job. I mean, really, well done. Fantastic I am. Anyway, guys, I'm going to show you the graphs now. So after that, you already know. Like and subscribe, ask questions, and that's that. Thank you. Take care. Hi guys, welcome back. And this is now the graph section of my review for the Z Tian from TANGZU. And well, we start straight away with the graph for the Z. And as you can see, if you look at it, it's got very much that, when you look at the graph, it kind of makes you think straight away of something like the graph you would see on a TANGZU oxygen, or a Kato. So it's got very much this kind of harmonish kind of feel to it straight away. So it's got this nice emphasis here on the sub bass, as you can see. Very little or no bleed into the mids. Nice smooth way that it then does its pin again, plateaus itself nicely across here. The 5K area not prominent, you don't really notice it. I mean, really very, very well tuned. And when you start comparing it straight away with other IEMs, you can see exactly what I'm talking about. The first one, which I'm going to just put on here now, is the P1 Max. And although yes, you can see, of course, less bass, less energy across, the 1.5 to 10K area, the reality is it's not as neutral sounding as you think. And when you compare the two, you actually do feel that there's more similarities than the graph would lead you to believe. The graph would kind of tell you that, oh no, the bass of the Z is monstrous by comparison. And no, it's fuller, yes, it's noticeable, but the fact that everything in the P1 has been very nicely matched, across the whole range, as been done in the Z, it's it just makes for a very nice complement to the Z. The P1 is, like I said in the review, a nice side grade. Okay. This one now here is the HAKUGEI, and straight away the HAKUGEI is probably one of the IEMs that I will be showing you that has the most similar kind of graph. The bass very similar, but then and this is where it's weird, and graphs don't always say everything. Although by looking at this, you would say that the upper mids and the presence in the Z are going to be more noticeable than on the hook. The reality is, when you listen to it, the hook is actually the one that does sound a little bit more energetic in the treble. Like I mentioned, although having said this, I still consider that the treble of the Z is more polished. It's more refined. There's just something about it that it's very, very nicely done. As compared here to the Muse Power, this is the stock one. You can see the mess that the Muse is. It's not so much in this lower end here, because I mean, if you take the Muse and you compare it to the P1, you can see that up to about 1.5 they are very similar. And actually, if you are able to just isolate that part of the spectrum, you will see that the Muse actually does have decent bass. It's not a bad bass. But the rest is then an absolute mess. It just carousels up and down, and it is not a nice IEM. It's not the question of not a nice, it's an awkward sounding IEM. It just sounds strange. Okay. This one, number 6, is the Lecturer S12, and as you can see, very similar kind of bass curve. Although you do feel ultimately that there's just a little bit extra on the Z, but not a huge difference. It's in this area here that you see that the Z is more polished. So the upper mids presence area, the treble area, early treble area, that's where you see that the Z is more polished than the S12. It just does things in a more refined manner. Okay, that's it. This one now is the CCA, the PLA 13, monster bass, very noticeable that it's got that thickness in the bass, but it's also slower bass as compared to the other planars here. It's even more slow than the bass of the Muse. Okay, so I guess that says something. But it's not that it's a bad bass; it's just slow. Okay, it's not as impactful as you would perhaps want it, but it makes for a very nice V signature, and across the mids, and it's actually fine. It's where I saw that the PLA was losing out, and I had to play with the tips quite a bit, was that technically, in terms of soundstage, it's not giving me that planar type of soundstage that I was expecting. It's decent, okay, it's good, but if I have to kind of compare it to the offerings that CCA and KZ have in terms of their single DDs, case in point, EDX Ultra, Lyra, even ESX, the EDA Balanced, this doesn't edge them out by a lot, and you would expect to that it would, because it's a planar. But anyway, it is what it is. It's not a bad IEM, not a bad IEM. I actually think it's a decent IEM, and for the price, I mean, a planar at $80 or well, actually 70 something dollars. That's not it deserves its merit. Next one now is the Yoko, and as you can see, yes, some similarities in the upper mids and mids, upper mids, and to a certain extent in the presence area, because although there's this difference here, you don't really notice it, but where that Yoko is very thin, is in the mid bass, and even though it's more sub bass focused, it's very, very relaxed, very chilled out, very chilled out. Next, the Timeless, and again, this one is one of the ones that has the most similarity to the overall graph of the Z, although I mean, for example, if I put here the S12, you will see again that there's that equal similarity, but the S12 just has something about its treble that it's just better than the Timeless, although the Timeless does seem to have more energy up there. There's just something there. I think it's a question of refinement of the treble of the S12. Number 10 now. Okay, well, that's basically all the planars there. Again, as a quick recap, the one that probably is the closest in overall tuning to the Z is probably the Hook. This is the one that probably kind of simulates the Z the most, the Hook X, and that's why as well it's one of the front, one of my first top choices in terms of the planars. Now compared to the single DDs, let's compare it first here to number 10, which is the Oriolos Isabellai. You can see very, very similar graph, and it translates itself to the sound that you hear in the Isabellai and the sound that you hear in the Z, very similar. A little bit more mid-bass energy on the Isabellai, but very overall, very, very equal. Same thing repeats itself with regards to the TANGZU Oxygen. Again, very similar sounding in terms of mids, overall energy, bass, everything very, very equal. And once again, in terms of the tonality and the timbre, these two are the ones that the Z kind of was able to simulate the best. And I think the tonality of the Z is probably its standout. Okay. As compared now to the Triberids, let's compare it here first to the Yan, the Moonlight. This difference here in terms of the bass is not as prominent as you can see. The Moonlight is very, very smooth. The Mahina, which is the collaboration, the retuned one, it's got a little bit extra energy here, around 2-3 dBs. But very, very similar, as you can see, in terms of the overall graph, and that maybe would have made it seem more equal to the Z, but the Moonlight as it is here sounds very equal. I would say it's the quality of the presence and of the brilliance area here which makes it stand out. And in terms of graph, you can't see this, but when you listen to it, you feel that it's more polished. It's very nicely done. It's got a nice, I like the word warmth to it. It's very, very nice, and and everything is very coherent. You hear the Moonlight, and the one thing that does stand out to you is how well all the drivers have been matched. And you don't feel that differentiation between drivers that you would perhaps notice sometimes on other IEMs. Next one, the other next is the EJ07M, and again we have a very equal kind of graph across the whole board. And again, it's not shown here, but this area here in terms of its overall polish is where you see that the EJ has, you know, a little bit more finesse, and in the overall base, although it seems to be lower, it's just got a little bit extra weight to it, okay? But you know, just the simple fact that it's able to keep up with the EJ more times than none, I think that in itself is already a win in my book. As compared to the Softiers RSV, you do notice very well the difference in terms of the base, in terms of quality and quantity. You do notice it, and even in terms of the overall treble extension, you do notice a difference. Although, you know, everything is just so coherent in the RSV that ultimately, yes, you could perhaps say that it comes out on top, but whether or not that justifies the price difference, that's a different story. I mean, again, in my opinion, the fact that it's able to keep up with it is worth its merit. And finally, the Audio Neon Pro, very similar actually, very equal in terms of the whole mids, upper mids and presence, very, very equal. Treble energy as well, very, very equal. I mean, the Audio in that aspect, although its older brother, the Neon, was known for having overemphasized bass and well, actually I can just show you quickly the Neon. Okay, this is the stock Neon, which had a lot of bass and was somewhat criticized for having all that bass energy. You can see here straight away, yes. It took away from the amount of detail that was being hidden here. And the reality is this: the moment that bass level was dropped by 3 dBs, which is what basically they did from one to the other, and I mean, I'll just once again put it here and take away the difference between the Neon and the Neon Pro is that this bass was reduced by about 3 dBs. By reducing this bass by 3 dBs, funny enough, the whole treble area, you know, presence and brilliance area came up, as you can see graphically, and it's audible, and it just makes for a very, very good sounding IEM. I mean, it is really, really good. You know, there's no other way. As compared to the Z, again, the biggest difference here is the fact that the Z has this tonality which doesn't let it sound so cold. Again, I repeat by saying this, I'm not saying that the Neon is cold. No, it's got a nice bass for a BA set. It sounds very much DD in a lot of instances, but it's very it's a very fast bass. It's that quickness of the bass, that impact that it has on the thumps, that can make it sound cold and take away a little bit of that extra warmth which the Z has, which can be perceived by some, or can be taken or interpreted by some as being more engaging, more entertaining, you know. But overall, look, again, just the simple fact that the Z was able to be compared with the Neon Pro and hold its own against such a tremendous IEM, for me, is a win in itself. And you know, in a nutshell, what I'm basically saying is all of these you know, single DD, hybrid, tribrid, sorry, and BA sets are amazing IEMs, and you know, they have their flaws, and it was in those flawed areas, those areas where they were not as strong, that the Z really stood out against its Planar brothers. Again, it's probably out of the ones which have the more conventional tuning taking away than the Dioko and the P1. It's most probably the better one, and the one that if you don't have a planar altogether, then I'll definitely say get the Z. Get the Z. If you do not have a planar IEM and you want to have a amazing planar IEM, let's put it that way, get the Z. You know, it needs nothing. It's perfect as it is. Nothing jumps out, nothing is aggressive, everything is very nicely done. If you have already got one of those other IEMs which I mentioned, it's a question of whether or not you want to upgrade. Obviously, the only one which I would probably say wait a little bit longer and maybe get the Z at a discounted price would be the HAKUGEI. If you have the HAKUGEI, I would say hold on, don't just jump the gun and go buy the Z. But if you have any of the other ones, definitely. Again, sorry, the exception would be the P1 because it's just got a very different tuning, and it sounds very, very good. I mean, there could be a certain amount of bias because I like the P1, but you listen to the Dyoko, and the Dyoko is a tremendous IEM. The thing that it's lacking is a little bit more energy punch, which the P1 has. And by having that extra energy, it just makes it sound so engaging, so much more engaging. You know, obviously, if you have enough power to bring it out, that it makes it an amazing side grade to the Z. I mean, those two, I think, honestly complement each other very nicely. One more neutralish, one more V-ish sounding, but they complement each other in a tremendous way. Anyway, guys, this has been a really long review. You better get the popcorn out. And again, any questions, anything, please ask away. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.